to this month's video. Welcome back to the GenMouse45 channel, where today I will be talking about the second book in the A Court of Thorn and Roses series, which is A Court... that is not how you hold a book. There we go. A Court of Mist and Fury. So, I covered the first book and how I joined the ACOTAR fandom. I'll have that link posted below. This video will be covering the second book, followed by my thoughts at the end. There are spoilers ahead, so you have been warned there will be spoilers in this book, and it is a very long book, so make sure you grab your tea. Might be seeing your cereal friend here in a few, but make sure you grab tea, snack, water, all that good stuff, so we can get started talking about, again, Court of Mist and Fury, which was written by Sarah J. Maas. It was first published in 2016, so quite some time ago. And then, again, as I mentioned before, I was listening to like audiobooks on YouTube whenever it was posted. It's not there anymore, sad face, so I did go out to my local bookstore and purchased it towards like the end of September, but I didn't start reading the book until October 2024 and finished in January 2025. So, alright, so let's go ahead and get started with the review. Alright, so A Court of Mist and Fury events take place a few months after the events from Under the Mountain. If you see me looking off screen, looking at my notes. Feyre is now a Fae and is living in the Spring Court alongside Tamlin and Lucien. More specifically, she is living by the toilet side most nights. That's where the chapter opens up. So sorry if you're eating. Make sure you just don't eat anything while reading the first couple chapters. Girlfriend's gone through some trauma. She reflects on what happened under the mountain, so you pretty much get a little recap of all the events that happened. And we also learn that Tamlin proposed to her as well, so they're both engaged to one another. Yay. I was still a Tamlin girly at this point. I will repent later on. But yes, so Tamlin yet sleeps on the bed throughout all of this, just like Under the Mountain. He does absolutely nothing. Yet again, he's haunted by his own nightmares, where he turns into like his beast form, kind of the form that we saw in the first book, and stalks the hallways late at night. Let's see, Feyre is trying to get out of the manor to do some hunting, but Tamlin is strict and says no. We also learn that Tamlin proposes to Feyre, or he says that. Feyre stays behind, and Tamlin encourages her to paint, yet Feyre cannot go and paint. It is just too much for her to revisit. We then meet Ianthe, a priestess and friend of Tamlin, where she was in the first book. We will never know. The two talk about wedding plans and family, so Feyre and Ianthe, they're starting a house, Tamlin's off doing his own thing. So Feyre and Ianthe are talking about the upcoming wedding, they're talking about Feyre's family and sisters and all of that. Later, Tamlin and Feyre make up, and we learn there are no such thing as high ladies. We're on the ACOTAR side of TikTok, you know, the high lady audio is... Let's see, Lucien and Feyre also talk about the upcoming tithe and how Tamlin was pushing the tithe amount up. Lucien is loyal to Tamlin, warning Feyre not to push things until after the wedding and the tithe, that Tamlin still needed time to adjust and heal. So Tamlin's dealing with his own demons, Feyre's dealing with hers. They're not coming and talking about things, and if so, it's getting pushed aside for something else. So then, things I can't really say on here on YouTube, and I try to keep my channel somewhat clean. It's kind of hard, but... yeah, so, but basically, they're not really seeing eye to eye on things, and Lucien's trying to be the go-between and be like, well, after the wedding, after the tithe, and he's relaxed a little bit, maybe then he might be a bit more lenient. No, Lucien, really? Who asked you to be the therapist? No. No. But we do get to the wedding day, so guests start arriving. So they're having like parties before the wedding, and Feyre is internally overwhelmed by the dinners, the parties, flowers, their congratulations. She keeps a smile on her face, trying to be gracious. There is mention of Rhysand. He's the High Lord of the Night Court, and somebody who's very prominent within the first book. And Feyre actually comes to his defense, much to Ianthe's surprise. Feyre realizes she hasn't laughed in the longest time, despite all the excitement around her. She continues to have PTSD-like nightmares, thinking once she is married, all will be well. They really need couples counseling. Oh no. Until she put on the wedding gown and hated everything about it. It wasn't until she was walking down the aisle that there are red rose petals on the ground, which reminds her of the blood that she had spilled under the mountain after she killed the 2 or 3 innocent fairies. She remembers telling Ianthe she didn't want the color red in her wedding because of this reason. She sees Tamlin waiting at the other end of the aisle, Ianthe as well. She sees the guest. She starts to move down the aisle until slowly she comes to a stop. She pleads from her mind. As the others encourage her to move forward, she's pleading within herself that someone or something come and save her. As the guests cry out around her, she hears a voice say, "Hello, Feyre, darling." And everybody screamed. So, yes. I scream, you scream, I scream for Rhysand. Yeah, we'll work on that later. Let's see. Feyre turns to see Rhysand there. Tamlin snarls at him, telling him to leave, yet Rhysand calls in the bargain. So Feyre and Rhysand made a bargain on the mountain. I'll help heal you if you come and spend a week in my court, in the night court and everything. Feyre at the time made a bargain, which she was told not to do, and did it anyway, and has to get the tattoos to represent the bargain. So that's why reading the first book is very important. Even though I've seen some folks say the second book could be where it all began, and first book's a prelude, but I think it does help to read the first book. There's just so much. There's so much in this book too. So back to it. Rhysand grabs Feyre close, and as Feyre closes her eyes, imagining the worst from all she had heard about the Night Court, she is instructed to open her eyes and sees the most beautiful place covered in starlight and snow, yet warm and smelling of jasmine. Rhys welcomes her to the Night Court. And he heard her shout through the bond, and she's all like, "Well, I want to go back home. I want to go back home to the Spring Court." And Rhysand reminds her of the bargain and how she could roam free and how he would accept her thanks as a response. So you can go free wherever you want. I just want to thank you. And in response, Feyre throws a shoe at him at the back of his head. Well done, girly. Should have tried out for baseball. Do I have baseball? Maybe they do. I feel like they would. There's snowball fight in later chapters or later books and stuff. Maybe. Okay, so Feyre throws a shoe at his back of his head. He dares her to throw the other one, and she does, and the shoe dissolves into black dust. As Feyre starts to take her leave to go to her bedroom, we hear a voice saying, "That went well." Feyre admires her room, that is not a dungeon cell like she thought it would be. She then takes a warm bath and is dressed in night court fashion. She feels a tug on her mind, and when she goes to meet Rhysand for breakfast, they talk over tea and how Rhysand, for the next week, wants Feyre to learn how to read. Feyre is against it, but then we are introduced to a new character called Morgan, or Moore, Rhysand's cousin. The three converse for a bit before Rhysand and Feyre leave, and Rhysand teaches Feyre a few sentences. He teaches her how to read a few sentences. It's definitely flirting. It's Rhysand is the most cunning High Lord. Rhysand is the most handsome High Lord, and all this stuff. And Feyre's just like, really? This is what I gotta read and write? But, not only does she have to read and write, she also has to train the shields in her mind so that way enemies can't get inside her mind and read her thoughts. So she has to write something, shield, write something, shield. It's exhausting. Poor girl's very good. So, and she's doing that for the rest of the visit. So for the rest of the visit, that's what she's doing. However, during this visit, we learn from Rhysand that war is coming to Prythian. At first, Feyre thinks it is Rhysand coming to the mortal lands where her family's at. Yet Rhysand says it is the Lord of Hybern who will come to attack, especially with Amarith gone. Rhysand says that he needs Feyre's hunting and trapping skills, and that she could train up the powers of the 7 High Lords to protect the lands from what was to come. Rhysand also said that there can be High Ladies. Feyre also writes out that Rhysand is the most handsome High Lord, delightful, cunning, and practices shields. Feyre sees more in Rhysand talking, and Rhysand becomes angry based on some past decisions during Amarith's time, and one of the temples being raided. and we see his wings, and he like his wings come out and everything, because he's so angry and everything. So they're all talking about like the temple, the war that's coming. It's all a shock, and there's some anger in there as well, as Vizan also explains winnowing. So we learn about winnowing, being able to move from one place to another, kind of like two edges of a piece of paper coming together. You can just winnow to a spot. It takes a great deal of power if you're trying to cross long distances. If you're trying to cover short distances, it doesn't take that much power. But apparently it is a very rare gift. Everybody seems to have. I don't know. At the end of the week, Feyre is returned to the Spring Court. Tamlin is glad to see she is okay, though not impressed by her attire. Tamlin instructs her to tell him everything about the Night Court, since no one really knows what it looks like or where it is. They also talk about Feyre's new powers and how Feyre wants to train them, but Tamlin says no, he will protect her. Feyre then dresses up in her Spring Court fashion as the tithe day comes to be about. She sits in a small chair next to Tamlin's enormous chair. The long hours pass by until a water wraith appears, saying that there was no more fish to give. Tamlin says that the water wraith has 3 days to present what is owed or double the next tithe, even though that would mean the water wraiths would have nothing to eat. Tamlin dismisses her, and Feyre is confused why they needed these small items, and Tamlin said there were no exceptions because everyone would want the same treatment. Feyre leaves claiming she needs fresh air, but she meets with the water wraith outside and gives her a gold necklace to pay for what items they needed, no bargain attached. The water wraith takes the jewelry and thanks her, saying her sisters will be grateful as well. Later that night, during an argument over what happened, Feyre manages to shift into Lucien's body for a moment. So she's sitting at the table, Lucien's over there, and all of a sudden she's like seeing through Lucien's eyes, and she's just like, whoa. Later on, Tamlin apologizes to Feyre and gives her a paint set, which she feels repulsed to see, especially the color red. Feyre felt that Tamlin was suffocating her with the guards, the need to paint. She tried to say she is stronger now, and that he would marry someone, and that he should marry someone who could put up with all of this. Tamlin is hurt, wondering if she wants to marry him, and she says of course, yet she feels she was drowning. In response to this, as Feyre is pouring out her heart, saying like, I feel like I'm suffocating, I'm drowning over here, like I need like air and everything, but you're suffocating me with all these stuff to pain, and that you're going to protect me when I want to train. Tamlin's response is to explode everything in the room with this power. And, there's wood flying, splitting wood, shattering windows, but yet nothing touches Feyre. She manages to shield herself against the impact of everything. Tamlin then tries to apologize and spends many days doing so, how he wanted to be better, and she is given some freedoms to ride around, still with an escort, but it's better than being trapped inside indoors. Rhysand appears once again, and he notices her appearance. Tamlin tries to get him to shut up and leave, yet Rhysand takes her with him. Once at the Night Court, Rhysand says she is pale, thin, and looks like she hasn't slept for ages. Feyre tries to not entertain his questions about what happened during one exciting moment down the bond. The rest of the time had been silent for him. And if you haven't caught on at this point, this is definitely going to be an enemies to lovers. So it's very like, Feyre's just like, trying to ignore him. He's like, oh, come on, entertain me. Throw another shoe at me and all this stuff. Take the bait. And Feyre's just like, no, not gonna do it. Instead, she goes back to reading and writing, especially all those sentences. But she does eat a bit more during this visit. Rhysand makes Feyre angry about Tamlin not caring about her, and Feyre manages to summon ice around her fingertips and hurls it at Rhysand. Feyre is returned back with Rhysand's offering her to fight it, while Feyre knew Tamlin needed to protect it. Feyre is not allowed out of the sight of the sentries, and we also see Feyre summons Klaus for the first time, much to the disdain of Lucien and Ianthe, and Tamlin cuts in, saying that Feyre would not train. Feyre realizes that the girl under the mountain had died, and how she wanted to do something. Tamlin again tells her no, she had to stay in the house. Feyre tries to leave after him, so they're all talking. Feyre is getting more and more upset. Tamlin's like, nope, and he walks through the door. Feyre tries to follow him, but as soon as she approaches the door, there's an invisible barrier shield wall thing that she cannot get through. And she is definitely trapped within the house, which she is not very happy about. So she realizes that Tamlin locked her in the house. Tamlin and Lucian leave, and Feyre starts to panic and finds herself cocooned in this blackness. Alis, that was someone who helped take care of Feyre during her time in the Spring Court, helps Mor, who managed to come from the Night Court, to get Feyre out of the house and back to the Night Court, where Feyre falls asleep. When waking up, she is confronted by Rhysand, who tells her about what Mor did was by the book, so there would not be a warning, or I guess like a war between Spring and Night Court. We don't need that. We already have one war coming. They talk about the other powers and who they belong to. Rhysand offers Feyre to go back to the Spring Court, but she decides to go with Rhysand. Rhysand then tells her they are going to Velaris, the city of Starlight. Yay! Where all the book girl, TikTok girls wanna go eat. Alright, so that was all in part 1. So this is now part 2, or House of Wind. So Feyre is now in Velaris. Feyre hears others at the door, and Rhysand tells her 2 things. Mor and him can only winnow into the townhouse. They're in the townhouse. We're going to meet a different house later on. And how safe Velaris was due to their protection. And secondly, she is given the choice to meet the people who waited for her or take a nap and freshen up. We love a man who gives choices. Yes, good. She decided... Sorry, my eyebrows itchy. She decided not to go back to the Spring Court, and that she was happy where she was. So she goes with the twins, the 2 twins that looked after her under the mountain. They're also there to freshen up, and was explained about the inner circle and the city being hidden. She wakes up from a nap and goes outside, being greeted by the beauty of Velaris. Again, someone please just take me there, I beg. She is greeted by Rhys and sees the House of Wind. It's a house up at the top of the mountain, way up above, where they will be dining there later that night. She sees the artist alley and is a bit traumatized by it all and wants to scream at them, the people that are just going about their day, all our citizens. And Feyre's just like getting mad, like what's going on? And Rhys steps in and says, you know, because he senses her thoughts and says like, leave my people out of this, they're blameless. They didn't know what's going on. So instead, Rhys talks about his inner circle, the different people inside of it, and she also flashes into his body for a second and sees herself through his eyes, how thin and gaunt she was. Feyre learns of I'm gonna try to say this, and I'm sorry if I get it wrong, but it's like Damate, and that's when you can walk into another person's mind as if you're going from one room to another. So kind of like, you know, like 1 second, like I'm sitting here, and then next second I could be like in someone else's mind, looking into it and seeing their memories or seeing through their eyes. And this is again another rare trait. Later on that night, Feyre and Rhys fly up to the House of Wind as they cannot winnow into the house. Feyre learns Rhys' mother was Illyrian and loved to fly, how Rhys thought he was never going to see Velaris in its view again, and Feyre shares her thoughts about Tamlin. Feyre meets the inner circle, and they sit down to a meal. Feyre meets Azriel, the spy master, and Cassian, leader of the armies. Think of it as Cassian is the bow trainer, and Azriel is my favorite because of reasons, so I absolutely love Azriel. Cassian's like Chris Hemsworth vibes, like Thor vibes. So they wield these things called siphons. Siphons. What the heck? Siphons. Azriel's is blue, Cassian's is red. They're then joined by Mor, who we met earlier, of course, Rhysand's cousins, and Amren, a small but mortal fae. So think of the definition of small and mighty, that is her. During dinner, Feyre learns about Illyrians, she learns about High Fae, the pain and cost of what Rhys had to go through to protect Velaris when he was under the mountain for 50 years, how Rhys, Cassian, and Azriel met and became like brothers, the worst of the Illyrian camps, how people in the Night Court either hated Rhys, that they hated, and basically how other people viewed Rhys after all the events that happened or what was going on. So there's a lot discussed around the dinner table. Feyre learns about the Court of Nightmares, which is in the Hewn City, where the wickedness was, and how Velaris was the Court of Dreams. Feyre shares her story, growing up early, her mother dying when she was 8, and how her father lost the fortune 3 years later. She then worked and hunted to protect the family. Cassian offers to train her. Moore shares some girl tips on why Feyre should learn to train and fight. Feyre offers to help the fight against Hybern, and Rhys says that Hybern will resurrect Jurian to do so. So after talking about training and fighting, and yes, you can do this, yes, we will help you, Feyre agrees because, of course, like, the war's coming, and that she basically wants to make sure, like, her family's protected in the Mortal Lands from the King of Hybern, because you don't hear a lot of good stuff about him. And as you see later on, he's not a good king. He's not a very kind king. But before they do all the training and everything, they have to go to a prison to learn about the Bone Carver and talk to them. Feyre wonders how bad can it be, and Cassian says, bad. So after dinner, Feyre and Rhys talk for a little bit before bed, talking about how their bond is like this open channel where it's like a living thing that keeps them kind of tethered to one another. Rhys also shares about how he had to do some really awful things to protect his people, especially people that were under the mountain, or from the Night Court, from Velaris, and all of that. So Feyre thinks it's a shame that, you know, other people don't know. Like, it's only the inner circle that really knows what Rhys went through. But Rhys says that he doesn't care as long as the people who matter most know the truth, and then tells Feyre that, okay, like, we're done talking here. Let's go to sleep. But then Feyre wakes up in the middle of the night to a nightmare about Amaranthin, and she finds Rhys standing over her, saying, like, hey, like, wake up, you're dreaming, you're having a nightmare, and not only that, but your fingers are on fire because, you know, the Autumn Court does fire, is their element. Yeah, element. There we go. Those are the words I needed earlier. I'm thinking, like, Avatar, Last Airbender. I collect them all as Pokemon. Anyway. Oh, Pokemon in a Court of Thorn and Roses. Anyway, later on. But yeah, her fingers are basically on fire. Kind of like small embers, like a raging fire. But she goes to the toilet, again, vomiting. And then the two kind of talk through things to kind of get her to calm down. And the next day, and try to calm her down. So she goes to sleep, she wakes up, they go to the prison, but she was not told it was inside a cave. And caves are a bit traumatizing at the moment because of what happened in the mountain, and she had to walk through the cave, she had to live in a cave for months on end, and she can't do it, she panics, and they both head back to Velaris. So it's not until Amren comes in, you just see her marching in. She just stands there watching Feyre until she wakes up, and she's like, girl, no, you need to go back there. And sets the record straight, is what I have down, for Feyre to go to the old prison. She gives Feyre an amulet to help her through the prison. Feyre and Rhys set out for the prison again, and they talk about Azriel is scarred from his brothers, Moore as court overseer, and if Cassian and Azriel go down, Moore will take command of the armies, and Amren is a political advisor, and how she is something else. More on that later. Anyway, the two go into the prison, and Feyre is greeted by a dark-haired boy who talks to ask a question for a question. Feyre talks about death and how she followed the bond to be alive again. Feyre wants to know about how to resurrect a body and the soul. The Bone Carver talks about the cauldron, how it was frozen in a lake, but then it was taken to where no one knows where. The feet of the cauldron were at the temples that were being raided, which is why they were being destroyed, because the cauldron would once again be resurrected for some sort of dirty purpose. So nobody knows where the cauldron is. Cauldron's feet were on these different temples. Somebody raided the temples because they're going to try to resurrect the cauldron in order to resurrect somebody, but they're not sure, like, if it's going to be Jurian. We talked about Jurian in the first book and all that. You're going to hear a little bit more of that backstory later on. But yeah, there's a lot going on, and they're just like, what is going on? this is what's going on. Let's see. A bone carver brings up the Book of Breathing. This is where it gets interesting, and how bringing the two halves could help control the cauldron. He says the High Lord of Summer has one piece, and the mortal queens have the other. Feyre and Rhys leaves. Feyre says she saw the boy, and Rhys said he saw Jurian just like how he saw him the last time. They then go back to the townhouse to explain to the inner circle what happened here, but before we go summer court into the summer, Feyre and Rhys have to go to the Weaver's cottage first, before going to the summer court and calling on Feyre's sisters to help meet the mortal queen. Feyre wakes up the next morning to Roseanne in her room, urging her to hurry and get dressed. Feyre is given knives as he helps her dress in the leathers. He tells her she has to go inside the Weaver's cottage because he would be easily detected. Feyre asks if she is his huntress and thief, and Rhys slides his hands to the back of her knees and says she is his salvation. Every time I hear her listen to that, I'm just like, oh my gosh, that is so cute. I think this is when, I think it's starting to show just when the ship was about to start sailing. I was like, oh, ready those sails. You're about to have enough. I was like kind of like on the fence. I was like, maybe they might make it. I was seeing like some spoilers around this time and everything, but I was like, okay, well maybe they might. This definitely proved it. Not only was he taking care of her and being there with her when she was having like those nightmares and everything. I mean, I need to save this for later on, but just real quick, just like helping her through all that and like taking care of her, letting her stay, giving her choices. It's like, girl, do you not see? He cares about you. Oh my gosh, you can be a little nicer to him, is what I wanted to say to her. Like, just be nice to him, please. He's been through a lot, and you know it. She knows it. She mentions it quite a few times. She's like, and I realized how much he went through to protect his people. That's not an easy job. So, anyway, this is where I was like, okay, goodbye, Tamlin. We'll just wait from the shore. Goodbye, Tamlin. Bye. We're going to Velaris. Get in, losers. We're going to Velaris. But first we gotta go to the Weaver's cottage, which this part is horrifying to hear, so you two please don't strike me down. I am but a small content creator, don't strike me down. Alright, let's see. Feyre and Rhys make it to the woods, and after a bit of flirting, to which Feyre realized he was distracting her from being nervous about the task on hand, Feyre goes into the Weaver's cottage, cabin. It really interchanges between cottage and cabin. I do realize that. Not the Weaver specifically, but in the book. I gotta figure out what the difference between the two is. Anyway, that's a Google search for another time. 2 a.m. scrolling. Alright, Feyre goes inside and she sees a dark-haired woman sitting at like a spinner's wheel. I think like Sleeping Beauty. Like one of those. Singing quite a lovely ditty, but it's actually a really terrible song. Feyre is instructed to only pick up the item, and she will know when she knows. That is so helpful. She looks around the room, which is filled with many different items. As the song continues, Feyre thinks of herself as a wolf to be there. As Feyre starts to panic, trying to find the item and just get out of there. She's just like, get out. She's trying to remind herself, like, I'm a wolf. We love a positive affirmation, but she's like, I'm a wolf. Where's the item? I'm a wolf. Where's the item? Like, find it. She then finds the item, which is a ring, and as she goes to picks it up, the Weaver stops singing. The Weaver is blind, forgot to mention the Weaver is blind, and she tries to sense Feyre, who protects herself with her fire magic. Feyre then tries to leave the house and does so through the chimney, which she realizes is made of fat lining. As she stops herself to think, trying to think of a plan, because the Weaver's trying to come up after her, and it's very tiny narrow space. She's like slipping and sliding all over. She then realizes that she is strong. Again, we love positive affirmations. She's strong, and she manages to kind of break the brick chimney and everything, so that way she can then get out of there. And when she does, she goes to the top of the roof, which is actually made out of human hair. Which covers all of Feyre because she's covered in fat, so now she's covered in hair. It's gotta smell lovely. So then she manages to leave the house. She goes up through the trees because she's like, there's no way the Weaver's gonna catch me through the trees and all this. And as soon as she finds Rhys, who is just lounging in a tree, nonchalant and all this, and Feyre is like, I'm covered in this, I got your ring, like, let's hurry up and go. He manages to grab her and winnows above the House of Wind. Remember, you can't winnow in, but I guess there's like some sort of shield around it. Now I think about it, like, the one cabin in the woods has like a shield. I just read this yesterday too, it has like a shield, so I wonder if like the House of Wind does too. I'll fact check that later, but yeah, it's like a thing. So instead he winnows above. Remember, it's on a mountain, so it's really, really high up. Oh my gosh, my favorite heights could never. So they go there, he manages to sprout his wings, and they both land safely, and she's covered in boiled fat, straw, and dust, and hair, and gross. Yeah, I know. After some arguing, Feyre presents the ring, and the others in the inner court are surprised, and Feyre explains that it was his mother's ring. Feyre and Rhys go back to the townhouse, and Feyre cleans up and learns the truth about Ianthe, how she preyed on males, and Rhys once broke her hand, saying not to touch him in that way. Feyre muses over all of this, learning another rule of Damati, which is hold the way open or risk being trapped in that place. So Mor and Feyre also talk about Mor's past and how powerful she was. Then they go to meet Feyre's sisters. Mor also gives the lines, there are good days and hard days. For me, even now, don't let the hard days win. Which is speaking of affirmations, that's an affirmation written on my wall. And not only that, I got a cool t-shirt from Hot Topic, not sponsored, with that quote to remind myself that when I do have hard days, and I wear it on my hard days, that don't let the hard days win. Yep. Alright, so we're in the Mortal Lands. Feyre greets Elaine, who is glad to see her, and then Nesta, who's not so glad to see her. Feyre first meets with her sisters, then brings in Rhys, Cassian, and Azriel. I think that was a very good plan, because we just brought High Fae into the house. It's like, yeah. So I'm glad that worked. They all sit to a meal, and Rhys explains everything and what he needs of the sisters. There's some tension between Nesta and Cassian. They spend the night there, and Rhys and Feyre talk about her sisters, how they did not look after her despite them being young too, and then her birthday, which is on the day of the winter solstice. The next day, Feyre and Rhys go outside to train. Feyre trains the spark with a candle when Rhys was away, so she's trying to just like light the candle and not just her fingers. So I don't know, I feel like there was a show like that. Maybe, I don't remember saying anything about it. Yet as Feyre is trying to practice, we are greeted by the Ator. So Feyre and the Ator are speaking, and then Rhys appears with dark magic and spears, and is trying to find out information about Hybern's armies. Azriel also appears and takes the Ator away. After Rhys threatens the Ator, if it comes after Feyre again, he will kill first and ask questions later. Feyre and Rhys start to argue and also fight, and she winnows for the first time, and Feyre says not to use her as bait again. She also summons talons, but does not use them. Rhys apologizes, and they go back to the house. Rhys says to Feyre the Ator was in the Court of Nightmares. Okay, so Ator appears. Apparently Rhys needed it to get information, so he used Feyre as bait. That's one way to woo someone. You're now bait, darling. I'm gonna give you this task. But yeah, Rhys got it. Azriel's like, give him to me. Azriel takes him to the Court of Nightmares, and of course with the power of the thing that you can go inside people's mind. Damati. One of these days, we'll figure it out. So they're able to see Azriel questioning the Ator. Feyre learns there's something going on with the Spring Court, so she writes a letter to Tamlin. And remember the first time that Tamlin met her, that Feyre couldn't read or write. There's actually a really funny TikTok video of what's that movie? Ratatouille, where the one guy's reading the letter. And it's Tamlin reading the letter from Feyre, and he's just so surprised. I giggle every time. It's one of my favorite meme videos. At this point, they all go back to Velaris, their job done. Feyre is done sleeping, so she joins the inner circle for a night out in Velaris. And for dinner, oh yeah, the other part why they visited the sisters was so that way they can use the house to meet the mortal queens. That was really the real reason, but the reason was like, let's catch an ACOTAR while we're at it. So, yeah, 2 for 1. Okay, sure. Back in Velaris, so she joins the inner circle for like a night out. Let's go get dinner. Feyre seems like a bit like a shadow on the wall. She watches the others. They're going like this nice restaurant, and she's just kind of like watching them from a distance. Like, girl, join in. They then went to go dancing. Feyre and Rhys walk behind the others, so it's, I think Amren's there. Amren, I know Moore's there. She wants to go dancing. Cassian's like, let's go dance. Azrael's like, I'll go if Moore goes. There's something going on there. But yeah, so, and all that. But Feyre and Rhys are kind of walking behind. He shows her one of his favorite spots in Velaris, which is the bridge with a night view of Velaris. I wish it was real. While Rhys shares some information once again with Feyre about the city and the inner circle, Feyre hears music that she had once heard in her cell from under the mountain. She stares at Rhys, who she realized sent the music to her cell. He responds the reason he sent it was because she was breaking and he wanted to save her. Rhys tries to shrug it off and they go flying home. The two send notes to one another. So you write on pieces of paper and then it just like disappears and vanishes. But not only that, they can also talk through their minds, so it's like, why do we have words? I don't know. I'm still trying to figure that one out. But yeah, mostly they're just teasing and flirting with one another. Alright, Feyre continues training and sees just how hot the bad boys are. And she also starts to see paintings in her mind. Yes, it does get annoying after a while, but I think this is one of the first times where she's like, I saw the painting in my mind. She's not painting quite yet, but she's like, but if I was able to paint, this is what I'd paint. 3, hot males in leather with fighting knives. It's like, okay, girl, you do you. Rhys teaches Feyre about different types of darkness, and Feyre manages to summon hers. Feyre realizes it was fun to tease and flirt with Rhys because it's so fun and easy to do. That's your sign, girl. That's your sign. Okay. So finally, we're going to the summer court. So we've been to spring court, night court, we're going summer court. I think that's it. So far. That's where we've been. Let's see, and she goes, so Feyre goes with Rhys and Amren to the summer court. Feyre takes in the summer court and adopts this air and attitude of indifference when they are greeted by Tarquin, the High Lord of the summer court. There's also Cressida, the Princess of Adrita, something like that. And there's also a male guard named Varian. They all talk about the events under the mountain and about the upcoming war with Hybern. Cressida says she wants to send word that Feyre is in the summer court to Tamlin in the spring court, like, hey, your girl's here. Like, Rhys is like, no, I forbade it. It's gonna be really, really hard, probably starting right now, to just keep it all in. The summer court is a bit scared that the 3 of them are there as they try to play cool and indifferent, but deep down they are just trying to get the Book of Breathings, at least the one half of the Book of Breathings, while they're waiting to hear back from the Mortal Queens about getting the second half. Feyre and Rhys share a moment that shows Rhys is a bit jealous of others who seem to take an interest in her, which was first Cassian, and now Tarquin. Oh yeah, Cassian was trying to make like some jabs, like, oh Feyre, like, we won't bite, or all this stuff, and Rhys is like, no, that's not gonna fly. And now Tarquin seems to be taking a romantic interest in Feyre, and Rhys is like, jealous. Yeah, happens. He instructs her to light a candle once again, but instead of fire, it was water. Feyre is worried Tamlin will go to war for her. She would not want to go back to the spring court, but if she could avoid death and bloodshed, she wouldn't. This, dear children, is called foreshadowing. Later, Tarquin and Feyre discuss the summer court rules and how he is a young High Lord. In the conversation, Feyre realizes she is jealous of Rhys almost pursuing Cressida, that she wants to feel wanted and loved again, but realizes she is unhappy and lonely. The next day, Rhys and Tarquin go and visit the other jewels, with Rhys brushing up against her shield in her mind to warn her to be careful. Tarquin lets Feyre take a necklace of black diamonds. They talk about the Spring Court, even though Feyre needs to ask about the book, or at least feel like where its power could be at. Feyre does not find out any information and goes back to Rhys. And while they're catching up, this is where we get the famous quote, to the stars who listen and the dreams that are answered. During dinner, Feyre wears the necklace, and she manages to get into Tarquin's mind. He sees Feyre as lonely, yet kind. The three discover that there is a temple on the cast away from the mainlands, where the mainland's at. There's like a little separate place, and that's where the Book of Breathings will be at. The next night, and they told the others that this would be Rhys, Amren, and Feyre's last night. Oh, we gotta go back to the Court of Night. Oh wait, we gotta be cool. We gotta go back to the Court of Night. We gotta go back to Night Court. You know, we got things to do. This war incoming. But secretly, they're like, okay, like they seem like we're gonna go, but we need to go get this Book of Breathings. Amren and Feyre go to the temple to find the book, while Rhys watches from the sky and takes out any of the cards. Feyre can sense and hear the book calling to her. They find it at the bottom of the temple, and Feyre tries to convince the temple she is Tarquin, the High Lord, with her newfound ability. However, when she grabs the book with half of the Book of Breathings, the book calls her a liar, and the door slams shut. They are trapped inside. Feyre and Amren are caught in the tower, and are close to drowning when water wraiths come in and save them. So they're like in this tower, starts filling with water, and right when they think they're gonna die, water wraiths come. Yay. I have a new appreciation after this book for water wraiths. I used to think it was creepy, somewhat mermaidy vibes, just like really creepy mermaids, but now after this book, I'm like, you know what? I'm for the water wraiths. Sign me in. I will do a water wraith OC if I have to. That'd be so fun. Yeah, but the girls are saved, and they're joined by Rhys, and they all winnow back to the Night Court. And after an instant snap of drying off, it makes me think of The Sims, how they just like spin around and they dry off. That's literally what I think of. They're like, just change. Okay. Feyre opens the book by combining some of her powers. The book opens and an ancient language is there. Amren will need to be the one to decode it for many, many days. It's going to be a while. After resting, Feyre learns from Rhys about blood rubies and how the Summer Court was after them for taking the Book of Breathings. So they're basically like, these things mean that if you approach our court, you're gonna die on sight. It's like, no. No more spending time at the beach. Got it. No more Summer Court. Let's see. Rhys teases Feyre some more, wanting her to flirt, but she knows it, but she does not take the bait. Later on that night, she hears him screaming out in his nightmares, and she goes to comfort him. Feyre also goes to talk to Amren about the translation, seeing her use her blood ruby as a book weight, and after many days, they all go to the Mortal Lands to meet the Mortal Queens. The queens were able to winnow in, and there are different queens of all ages and colors, heights, and temperaments. They say the sixth mortal queen stayed behind because she was unwell. They all greet themselves, the inner court does. The queens do not take kindly to Faye. After a long and tough conversation, Rhys realizes he may have to show them Velaris to get the other half of the book. The queens say they need the proof and disappear. Back in Velaris, there's a discussion to go to the Court of Nightmares. Feyre also learns the story of Miriam and Draken. So I hope I did this justice, but Miriam and Draken are supposed to be wed or are wed. Miriam leaves and she finds Jurian. So Jurian and Miriam are lovers, but at the turn of the war, Jurian becomes like so gung-ho about defeating Amaranthan that Miriam and Draken fall back in love. And Jurian was taken by Amaranthan. Remember, it was his eye. That was the ring. Creepy. Many thought that Draken and Miriam are dead, but they are still alive, living somewhere else peacefully. Feyre also learns about Mor's backstory, which I hope I can say on here. It's very sad. which is, she was once engaged to Eris. I think we're going to see him later on. Yeah, Eris, the eldest son of the High Lord Autumn Courts. They were engaged, but then Moore and Cassian were together the night before the wedding, and she lost her virginity to him. And Eris did not want Moore anymore because she was sullied, and her family tortured her, nailed a note to her body, and left her at the Autumn Court saying that she was Eris's problem. Eris then dropped her off away from the court, wanting nothing to do with her, and Azrael was the one to find her. I don't like Eris at all. And I have a feeling he's going to pop up in other books, and I'm probably not going to like him anymore, and then he's going to be like, oh, I'm a handsome high son of the High Lord, or whatever, and I'll be like, I don't like what you did with my other girl. I actually have a cosplay of Moore. I forgot about that. But yes, I love Moore. So the fact that she went through all that and she's still like this like cheerful, overcame her trauma. I think they all did in some way or another. And they're helping Feyre with hers. It's so sweet. Oh, we love a good support group. We love that. Love that. But yeah. Alright, so this is where things get hot and heavy. This is definitely not kid-friendly book. No. There is talk about so there's some things discussed. They're not for the ears of children because those topics are brought up. And this is also whenever they're trying to find like these ash arrows in the land, and they're trying to figure out like who's firing ash arrows into the land. They all then go to a court of nightmares. So this is Rhys, Feyre, Moore, Cassian, and Azrael go to the Court of Nightmares, which Feyre and Moore arrive first, then Cassian and Azrael. Rhys then enters, and they all bow. Rhys takes Feyre with him on the dais and sits her on her lap as he sits on his throne. Feyre feels strong and beautiful, that she had survived and triumphed, and she also plays along with Rhys, maybe at times not completely playing it off, and enjoys and teasing others in the Court of Nightmares. When Feyre gets up to leave, realizing maybe she went too far, like at first she's like kind of playing it, but then maybe she's getting too much into it, and then afterwards she's like, oh, like Rhys went through something pretty terrible and traumatic, maybe I took it a bit too far. She then gets up to leave, and she passes Keir, K-E-I-R, so Keir, who is actually Moore's father and was looking after the Court of Nightmares. He calls her a name, and Rhys explodes. He's not happy. No, he's not very happy. Which then hurts and injures Moore's father. Later on, Feyre and Rhys teleport to a different place, and he apologizes, asking her, like, what did you want? What do you want in life, Feyre? Isn't that everybody? Everybody. She's having an identity crisis all the time. What do you want, Feyre? Feyre goes back to the townhouse to contemplate what she wants, and she wants the Rhys who took care of her in the cell under the mountain and fought for her when no one else did. She's seeing the light. It's like, come a little closer. Come a little closer. Rhys and Feyre do not meet or talk for a while, not until the most magical night of the year in Velaris, Starfall. Feyre wears a gorgeous and stunning gown. This is when she goes up, she sees Rhys, the inner circle, they're all waiting, and these large stars pass through the sky, because of like Earth turning. I'm guessing very different from Earth here, but in Perithian, when these large stars pass through the night, you can see them up close and they're dazzling. There's parties all night, dancing, all kinds of good stuff. So Feyre and Rhys kind of scooch along for a little bit so that they can talk. Feyre realizes that this is his first starfall since being back from under the mountain. He wonders how the others would think of him because of everything that he went through. And then in the middle of the conversation, a piece of star falls and hits Feyre in the face. Rhys laughs at Feyre, which Feyre's a bit offended, and then a star comes across and hits Rhys in the face. Feyre then laughs, realizing it is the first time she's laughed in a long time, because Rhys asks for her to smile again. She also takes her fingers and paints on his hands and arms like part of the the stuff she paints on his hands and arms. And she realizes that this is also the first time she painted on something, and it was on him, and it was something for him, like a star and mountain and swirls and all this. It's so cute. It's one of my favorite. I mean, I have a lot of favorite moments in this, but this one specifically, I love Starfall, and I love seeing artwork of Starfall. I love sharing it. I love the videos and the audios of it. Like, Starfall's the best chapter in my opinion. Starfall is one of the best. Maybe I'll do that one day, like top 10 moments from the whole series up to this point. So there's 5 books. More on that later. They then go back to the party and dance the night away. The next day, a not so much fun day, Rhys, Feyre, Cassian, and Mor go to the Illyrian camp. Aemon stays behind to translate the book, and Azriel heads to gather more information. The group finds out that the Illyrian women have to first do chores before training, and Rhysand does not please. Rhysand introduces Feyre as his, and the two leave to train. At the time, Feyre is dealing with her newfound feelings for Rhysand, while feeling like a traitor to Tamlin. The two go off and train, and Feyre learns about the Blood Rite, how Tamlin and Rhys met. So real quick, story time. I thought about not covering this and making a separate video, but I think I'll do it here, because it was in this book. And I think later on it will be important. So when Tamlin and Rhys were young, they met, and Rhys showed Tamlin like these Illyrian fighting techniques. Yet Tamlin revealed the location of the Illyrian camp, and this is where Rhys' mother and sister were at, and they were both killed. Rhys' father was upset, and he and Rhys went to the Spring Court. Rhysand's father killed Tamlin's father and mother, who Rhys had thought that they were not going to kill the mother, just the father, for what had happened. And after some arguing, Tamlin finds them and kills Rhysand's father. The reason why Tamlin and Rhysand didn't kill each other that day is because they both realized that they're now high lords of their respective courts. So there's that. Which was the truth about how Tamlin practically murdered Rhys' family. And during this whole conversation, Feyre is practicing her magic and nearly burns the clearing down after hearing that story, because I believe earlier she was told something very different from Tamlin, and now she's hearing Rhys' side, and she's like, what happened? See this tree? I'm about to burn it down because I'm so mad. It's like, girl, calm down. Finds the fire, the ice, the water, and the darkness inside of her, and realizes she does not possess the powers of the High Lords, rather that power is now hers and hers alone. So at first it was like, oh yes, this gift is the power from the High Lord. She's like, nope, I'm making it my own. This is my own power. Yes, girl. Yes, girl. She's learning. She manages to learn how to control the magic powers, and declares that she wants to paint, especially him, Rhysand. Let's see. The two head back to the house, and Mor and Cassian talk about her going back to Hume City. Keeps a distance from Rhys, not to love, I mean burn, him when she hears a familiar voice. Feyre turns to see Lucien standing before her. Lucien says they have been looking for her for 2 months. It's crazy how fast that time had gone. And says to come home with him, and to go back to Tamlin, who has not been himself. Feyre says no, and tries to avoid him touching her, as one hand could have them winnowing back to the night, or to the Spring Court. I put Night Court, no. I go back to the Night Court, or Spring Court. But at the same time, could you imagine Tamlin's face if Feyre showed up in her Illyrian leathers, because that's what she's dressed up in? Oh my gosh, he'd flip. He would not be happy. Rhysand appears, and Lucien curses at him, which makes Feyre angry. Feyre said that she needed his help, and how she wanted to keep Velaris, the inner court safe, and Rhysand safe. She tells Lucien, when you spend so long trapped in darkness, you find that the darkness starts to stare back. She then sprouts her Illyrian wings, taking Lucien aback. Feyre says the girl under the mountain died, and she doesn't want to be some High Lord's pet. Lucien leaves, and Feyre tells him, after all that happened with Rhys' family, that she is not going back. Lucien leaves after he tells Rhys he and his court are dead, then leaves. Rhys and Feyre talk about her new power. Rhys and Feyre don't go back to the Illyrian camp with houses and stuff. Instead, they go to a little town that has an inn where they have to share one bed, and we know which specific trope is very happy at this moment. 2 people, 1 bed, 1 moment. Feyre freshens up while Rhys tries to find some food, careful to make sure that no one can detect that his presence is there. The 2 eat and talk. Later, they share the bed and an intimate moment together. Feyre manages a night's sleep with no nightmares and wakes up feeling rested, calm, and safe. Very important. The 2 leave the inn the next morning. And as they're flying, they're both pretty quiet, but when Rhys is about to say something important, he is shot by arrows in his wings. The 2 crash into the ground in separate places. Feyre, knowing Rhys was hurt bad, winnows and uses her darkness to then find him, which is in a cave where the attackers had brought him away and were whipping him. She protects him with her bow and arrows. She sees the arrows that were used on him were poison, and she frees him. She frees him and takes the arrows out, trying to distract him with a story of how she painted the cabin with some paint she managed to buy with some money when she was in the human lands, and how she painted a dresser, and they had a dresser with 3 drawers, and how she painted Nestos as flames. The next one was flowers for Elaine, and the night sky for herself. Rhys realized somehow Hybern soldiers tracked him with the magic he used yesterday and were trying to nullify his power. Feyre tells him to rest, and he tells her he was looking for her too before passing out. Feyre also sleeps, but when she wakes up, Rhys is in a horse position. She then goes and tracks, and we find the cereal. We're back with the cereal. She is informed on how to treat the poison or blood bane, and that a few mouthfuls of her blood would help. The cereal then says if she wished to speed up her mate's healing, she could pick a certain flower to help aid him faster. Feyre pauses at the word, mate. The cereal is surprised Feyre did not know. Sure you are. Sure you are. But Feyre said she wants to hear it from Rhysand. Feyre returns to Rhys and treats him, asking how long did he know that she was his mate. And the short answer is on the balcony of the mountain before he left that area. I didn't say left her. He didn't really leave her. He just left to go back to the night court. Remember that moment when he stumbled? That's what he knew. But he didn't say anything because he was back to the night court. He keeps asking questions. When was he going to tell her? He wanted to yesterday. And when she noticed it was not a bargain between them. Who else seemed to know? Amryn and Moore knew, Azriel and Cassian suspected. Why didn't he tell her? Because she was going to marry Tamlin, and after everything she went through, it didn't seem right. Feyre is hurt because Rhys kept this a secret when he promised no secrets, and that his friends knew but not her, and Feyre does not want to hear any more and wants to go back to the Illyrian camp. Rhys complies and they winnow back. So we find out Rhys and Feyre are mates. They are meant to be together. Feyre had no idea. Rhys pretty much told everybody, or everybody kind of suspected they were mates. And now Feyre is finding out, and Feyre is not happy. Especially at Rhysand. Upon arriving to the camp, Rhys is still hurt, yet Feyre marches to Moore and asks her to take her somewhere secluded. Moore takes her to a cabin, and Feyre is able to stop and process things for a while. The cabin has magic that can summon food, hot water, and there's also some paints there. So Feyre paints while thinking, painting nearly the whole cabin. Moore stops by and marvels at the painting around the cabin. They talk about the cabin's purpose. Aemon once tried to paint, that's why the paints are there. Rhys conditioned, and after Moore spends the night, she leaves. Feyre imagines her future with Rhys, and after 5 days, she goes and gets the door to find Rhysand there, looking and feeling much better. So this is the famous chapter 54. This is the one I will always and forever cry to. This is where Rhysand explains how the bond was accepted. Okay, so first Rhysand explains, before telling the story, when the female offers food to the male, to their mate, then they accept the bond. He explains at the ending of the war how he watched Jurian be tortured and killed. So, real quick, so there was a war beforehand. There was a little prologue with Rhysand's point of view. So there was like a war. That's when the treaty was formed. And the wall was built, and then everything afterwards. So Roseanne was in that war during the time. And so was Jurian. Remember we heard earlier, Jurian was trying to get to Amaranth and Amaranth? Is it? I don't know. Her. She's dead now. Let me see. But Jurian was tortured and killed, and Roseanne had to watch. He also explored his relationship with her. I don't know. I'm starting to get tired. So he explores his relationship with her and how she managed to kill half his court of nightmares for vengeance for Tamlin's father. He was then taken under the mountain. Yet sometimes he would have these dreams and how he saw through Feyre's eyes all the things she was doing until the night of Calumet. This is where the "there you are, I've been looking for you" comes into play. So during all the trauma, during all the things that Rhys was going through that I didn't say anything, he's seeing through Feyre's eyes, like her life and everything, and how she had a struggle, but there was also joy in it, and that kept him alive and fueled him. And when he went to Calumet, or whatever it's called, that's when he was like, "There you are, I'm looking for you." That's so sweet. He went through the whole story of his version of events that basically happened in the first book, up until Feyre died from her, and how he tugged at the bond to keep Feyre with him. I don't. Feyre realizes her home was with Roseanne. Earlier she said her home was in Velaris. Roseanne realized he was her mate when they met on the balcony after Feyre was made anew, and that her scent was picked up. Either way, it was heightened because she now had the power of 7 lords, or maybe it was the wind, and he realized it then, but by then he was winnowing back to the Night Court, and he managed to be like right next to his cousin Moore that he had not seen in 50 years, and started weeping, knowing that Feyre was his mate, yet she was in the arms of another. He felt her. He tried to ignore it until the day of the wedding day, and he went to save her, and he saw how thin and wasted away she was, and it made him mad at Tamlin, and how he had to save her that day. She was trapped in the house, so the day that Moore came and got her, because he could not be away from her, and that he loved her. Feyre asks him again if he loves her. Rhys nods. Feyre sets the bowl of soup down and tells him to eat. Okay, maybe I am like an enemies to lover. Maybe just with this one. I don't know if there's like other ones, but usually with enemies to lover, I'm kind of like, eh. I'm like more like love at first sight kind of galley. One bed trope is kind of growing on me. I'm kind of more like love at first sight, like you notice, or it like slowly grows over time, like maybe from like childhood or something. So yeah, it's growing on me. So I'm going to not go into depth in this chapter. Chapter 55, everyone who's read it probably knows why. I'm just going to gloss over it because it's steamy. There we go. Very spice. Very spice. At least up until this point. I heard that other books are quite spicy. I have to very carefully articulate my words now. Oh gosh. I'm just gonna like talk about it, and then it's just be like all spicy jalapeno thing. And I'm just talking spicy jalapeno. Yeah. Anyway, so Rhys finishes eating the soup. Feyre also states that she loves Rhys, and the two kiss deeply and share many intimate moments, some involving paint. Another time was lights from possibly the day court that Feyre managed to summon. The two say they will call each other mates. The next day, Rhys says that this type of frenzy was typical after a mating bond was accepted, and sometimes males can get dangerously territorial over their female mates. Like if you even think about like glancing over at a female who's been mated, like that male mate will come after you. It's like, ooh, okay. Sometime later they go back to the Lyran camp, and Cassian makes a joke. This is where we see it in action. To which Rhys doesn't take lightly, and the two fight in the mud about it. Moore welcomes Feyre into the family, because Moore's very sweet and loving and kind. After some time, they all go back home to Velaris. The inner court greets Feyre to protect her and serve her, yet Feyre still wants to think of them as friends. Rhys and Feyre arrive at a spring-laden mortal lands and are greeted by two of the human queens. The old queen is not set on giving up the book, and Moore presents the... Is it Veritas? I hope I said that right. It's like Veritas and then Velaris, and they're both like close in the sentence that I wrote, and I'm like, oh. This is a Veritas, which is an orb that helps the queen see Velaris. Yet the old queen is still not impressed, saying she wants to consider, but the others say there is no time with the armies approaching fast. Nesta demands for her to give up the book, and her and Cassian share a small moment of the pain they each endured. I don't know. I haven't quite read their story yet, but maybe this might change. I don't know. The two stand up and leave, yet at the seat of the Golden Queen, there is a small box, and the other half of the Book of Breathings is on the chair, with a note saying that the Sixth Queen was not ill and to trust no one. Rhys offers Elaine and Nesta sanctuary at Velaris, but they say no, and Rhys says that the door is always open. They all go back to Velaris, yet Rhys and Morris leave to the Court of Nightmares. Cassie and Azriel help guard/keep Feyre company as they wait for Amryn to crack the code or hear back from the queens. While Cassie and Feyre go out to see like a musical performance. That's pretty cool. As they head home, Feyre watches the river and the two talk about Nesta, yet Feyre starts to see the river shift, and Cassian taps the siphon and is covered in scaled armor. Feyre realizes that whatever was coming was dangerous and was approaching from the sea, and that they were being invaded. There were creatures such like the ACOTAR trying to break through the shield dome. The Golden Queen's body is thrown down, but she was already dead before the impact on the bridge. Feyre runs to the townhouse to safety as Cassie and Azriel and Amryn fight. Feyre returns to see the rainbow, the art district, all bloodied with people hurt and screaming. Feyre takes out her knife and winnows, joining in the fight, even summoning water wolves to help defend the people. She even fights the ACOTAR, taking him in the sky, striking and winnowing until last second. She winnows away and the ACOTAR hits the ground, dying at the impact. Feyre remains unscathed, despite Rhys trying to mentally stop her, and he greets her, glad she is safe. Feyre looks at her home, her people, and the two hold each other while Rhys calls Feyre Defender of the Rainbow. That's going to be really cool in a movie, just like Feyre being total badass and like winnowing up into the sky. She's like fighting and stabbing at the ACOTAR. I think at first, going back and looking at it, I think at first Rhys would like brush across her mind, like, where are you? Like, what are you doing and stuff? And she like closes him off. But at the very last second, like they're fast approaching the ground, she like manages to winnow away at the very last second, and the ACOTAR like slams to the ground. That's so cool. That's gonna be such a cool shot in the movie. If there ever is a movie, I'm looking forward to it. Or a series. I don't mind either or. And I don't mind live action. I don't mind animation. I'm cool with whatever. Just give me it. I'll take it. So after Velaris was secure and some rebuilding was done, the next day Amryn cracked the code, and they needed to touch the cauldron and say the words to nullify its powers. They come up with a plan, which Cassian and Feyre would winnow inside, while also Azriel and Moore would be there to kind of protect, but Rhys had to stay outside because if not, his power would get detected. This seems familiar, like the Weaver's Cottage. Now that I think about it now, it's like, you guys stay far away or else people are going to detect you. It's like, wouldn't they have some sort of magic that could just like, not nullify, but kind of like maybe cloak? Like a cloaking device, like you wear something. Like, I think they did that in Harry Potter. Totally going off subject, but literally like he wore it and it was like invisible, you can like move around and stuff. I know they have this. Hey, Court, get on that. There's gotta be something. Anyway, but yeah, I digress. Let's see. So they come up with this plan, everybody's liking the plan. Later that night, Roseanne gives Feyre his mother's ring, and how after they nullify the cauldron and everything's all right in the world, that Feyre wants a party. She wants to tell everybody, like, hey, we're mated. She wants so much more. So, yeah. We want the best for them. I think Feyre and Roseanne are like my favorite couple in this series, so I like another couple, but I don't think it's official, so I'm just gonna keep that one on the back burner. And then there's another couple that I'm like, okay, maybe after I read their story, I'll think about it. We'll see. But for now, so they all go to Highburn with Mor and Azriel fighting off the guards, and Cassie and Feyre attempt to move quickly as the Book of Breathing wants to move closer to the cauldron. The four of them reach the cauldron, and there's like this smooth, like blackness inside of it. Sounds very creepy and eerie, and it's in like this dungeon castle thing. I don't know, things just look cooler inside my mind. Maybe that's why I'm a little bit hesitant about a movie. I'm just like, I like these images in my mind, because the Cassian like bringing out the scale armor like also look really cool. Anyway, but back to this, because this is like the last 200 chapters, and this is where things get interesting. So all Feyre has to do, right, is touch the cauldron, say a magic spell, and all will be right in the world. You know what she does? Takes both half of the book that you're not supposed to do, and she puts them together. You're not supposed to do that, because bad things happen, and she finds out, because all of a sudden, there's like this mighty force around her that knocks her down. She's almost lost to the darkness. Azriel has to save her ass. It's like, oh my gosh, Feyre, you had one job. You had one job. And she didn't listen. So now the Book of Breathing is whole, but the cauldron's not nullified. And not only that, Jurian appears. Jurian was resurrected. Nothing can go wrong. Oh no, it all went wrong. Literally, every single book so far has been that way. Alright, so Roseanne also appears and manages to take the book back and puts it in his pocket. More on that later. Feyre then realizes she failed. No duh. You had one job. Jurian demands to see Miriam, but the others say that she is safe, and no, you cannot. The King of Highburn appears, and the group is distracted enough that Jurian hurls an ash bolt coated in bloodbane into Azriel's chest. Oh, my baby. The group is ushered into the throne room, where Lucien and Tamlin are waiting. Tamlin and the king try to urge Feyre home, until the mating bond sent between her and Rhys was released, and Tamlin thought that Feyre was tricked by him. The king is amused by all of this, and just then the last 4 human queens come in, along with Feyre's sisters, bonded and gagged. There's a lot that goes on. So basically, Rhys is trying to stand still, because if he moves muscle, they're all going to know that they're mated. Doesn't work. They all find out, and Tamlin's like, oh, it's a trick, like it's some sort of magic trick. He can't even cloak himself to like go into dangerous situations. Like, Tamlin, are you that stupid? Are you that dumb? I guess so. I don't know. You could tell that I just scream at the end of these books because I'm just like, what is going on? I probably reread it like 5 times, just like really slow down the process. But anyway, getting ahead of myself. So they find out that they're mates. Tamlin's like, I need you to come home with me. Feyre's like, no, I'm not going with you. You're crazy. But then the queens come in, and so do the 2 sisters. And Feyre realizes that the information she gave to Ianthe about her sisters was for this moment. And before she can talk, the king sends forth a bright light, which Rhys manages to protect Feyre, so the king's just like, blind them. And there's bright light everywhere. And in this process, Cassian wings are destroyed in the process. The king instructs the sisters into the cauldron to test the powers of the cauldron to make that could turn them into Fae. Elaine is first, and she manages to survive. Nesta is next, and she goes in with a fight, having to be dunked in. And also too, that Feyre noticed that something was different about Nesta, and it's assumed that Nesta took something from the cauldron. The queens are delighted, and I assume they jump in after this. Or maybe it was a little bit later on, but at some point they jump in. I don't know if they do get turned into High Fae. I'm just starting to read A Court of War and Ruin. But I had to finish this one because I was like, oh, I don't want to get things muddled up and confused. But yeah, maybe I wonder if they come back alive. I don't know. Anyway, but in all of this, Lucian is there and sees Elaine, and he's being very nice to Elaine. And so he looks at Elaine and says, "Guess what? You're my mate." Just like that. And Nessa's just like hell she is. No, she's not. You're crazy. And Lucian's like, no, she's my mate. We're mated. And Elaine's like, what? Feyre realized she also now failed her sisters because she was told to protect her sisters and everything, even though she's the youngest. Still makes no sense. The oldest one has to be the protector. Mostly because I'm an older sister and I look after my younger siblings. And I think that's why I don't really like Nesta, because she's the oldest sister and she didn't do dilly squat. I don't know if she does later on, maybe she makes up for it, maybe I'll find in my heart to forgive her, but I'm like, Nesta, we older sisters, we have to look after our younger sisters. Oh my gosh. Anyway. So Feyre gets really upset and she explodes with a power of this light flash. And then after that, she then goes to Tamlin, pleading for the others not to take her back to the Night Court. So all of a sudden she's had a change of heart. She's like, oh Tamlin, I've missed you. I want to go back to the Spring Court. Don't let them take me back to the Night Court. Meanwhile, she's communicating through Reese. She's like, get my sisters out of here, get everybody else out of here, go back to the Night Court, leave without me. Yeah, just get everybody to safety. And she tells the king to break the bond between her and Reese. I screamed hearing that. Okay, I was like, excuse me? No, you build everything up to this moment. I was freaking out. Oh my gosh, kid you not. The king obliges, and Reese is protesting loudly out loud. He's just like, no, you can't do that. We're mates. You can't break our bond. Is that even possible and all this stuff? And the king manages to sever the bond, that it's very painful to the point that Feyre faints. Tamlin then sees that the tattoo is gone. Well, good riddance, glove. Goodbye. Do you need to make the second one? That's just stuff like that, right? So, and with a look, Feyre sees her friends, her sisters, winnow away. They manage to get out to safety. However, Lucian is not happy. Remember that whole thing about mates starting to be in the frenzy, mates being a little bit protective and all this stuff? Starts hitting him. Feyre then tells Tamlin to take her home, and the king is upset that Feyre does not have the Book of Breathings. Remember? Rhysand took it from her. Because that's what he wanted. He wanted the Book of Breathings. And Rhysand was like, snatch. Of course. And Feyre's like, don't have it. I'm going back with my beloved Tamlin. The bond has been broken. My eyes are open. And it's gotta be something going on. But before we figure that out, we actually get a chapter from Rhysand's point of view, which is when they all manage to go into the townhouse with Feyre's sisters in tow, but not Feyre. Remember, Amryn was still at home. She didn't go along. And Amryn comes over, and she's just like, what happened? Where's Feyre? Where's my High Lady? What's going on? And Rhysand's like, she's not here. Amryn's like, well, you need to go get her. And he says no, that this was what they had planned all along. I was like, do tell. That he and Feyre had a ceremony the night before, and how she was now his High Lady of the Night Court, his equal in every way. Is beautiful. Anyway, and not only was she his mate, but also now his spy. She was going back to the Spring Court as a spy. And how they still had this faint bond. It wasn't as strong as before, but it's a very faint bond. But they can communicate. And that not only that, she has a second tattoo. I guess I really gotta start that second club. But a second tattoo that was being glamored. So remember, the glamoring can hide, conceal things. So it's concealing both of it. So it looks oh no, oh, no longer a bargain, a bond. But then it's haha, nope, still there. And then Rhysand also declares that they are now going to war. It then cuts back to Feyre's point of view, where Feyre and Tamlin walk into the Spring Court, and Tamlin is grateful she is there. There's definitely a different, not shift in the writing, but there's definitely a different writing style than the first book. The first book felt like the end of Snow White, and they're both riding on a horse to the castle and all that kind of stuff. This was oh, you're back after everything you've been through, like, so glad you're back, and it just seems like a little bit darker now. So, yeah, it's definitely a different demeanor. Feyre asked Tamlin not to shut her out, and to shut her out, like, you know, you gotta be open to communicate and all this stuff. But Feyre has a secret motive, as she now despises Tamlin, and for selling her sisters out, and for Jurian, and for just everything. There is this deep contempt inside of her for Tamlin, but on the outside she's all like, oh, I missed you. Oh, it's good to be home. It's like, Feyre, you little actress, you. It's all part of the plan. Tamlin does apologize, but it's too late for her. Yet she puts on an act now, as he unknowingly let the High Lady of the Night Court into the Spring Court. And that's where the story ends. That's where it ends, at least for this one. So I believe you get like a little sneak peek of the third book. Oh yes, you get. What do you can't see? Yeah, I want to try that too. Okay. But yeah, that's where the story ends. So the first couple chapters, it seems pretty quick. You know, they're engaged, they're getting married, there's all this stuff, and there's the talk of war, and it's like, well, what's going on? And it feels like, I wrote this down, like big plot points with little pieces about magic, war, and history in between, a little bit about each character. Either they're talking about themselves in their past or from other people, like Rizan talks for a while to Feyre about his inner circle. I don't know if that's for him to like get her to trust them, or if he's just like, yeah, let's talk about them and not me. Because whenever he talks about himself, he's like, oh, go to bed. Oh, eat this piece of toast. Rizan, no. And yes, it is true, last 200 pages or so is where the action is at, and it's very hard to put the book down. So by the end of it, it's just like, I mean, you saw me like freaking out towards the end. It's just like, oh my god. And then it's like, it's literally, and nothing can go wrong. And then it's like one thing after another, until eventually it's like, okay, like things have settled to a point. Like there's definitely going to be more later on. Obviously, we have the next book to cover. There's going to be more. So yeah, so excited. It's written really well. So at least from like my point of view, like there's a lot of like big and small moments that help character development and gain a better sense of the world, especially before the war comes. So like before the war comes, it's like, okay, let's build up why protecting Prythian is so important. Let's build up these different types of courts, these different high lords and all that. So alright, let me see. Went over a couple plot points and kind of went on tangents throughout the video, but let me see. I do like Feyre's line at the Weaver's cottage that she doesn't want to be a mouse but a wolf. So it's funny because, you know, I'm Gen Mouse 45. I like, you know, Redwall was my inspiration for my channel name and all that stuff. I don't think I could be a wolf. We were talking about spirit animals the other day, and I said mine was a deer. Just funny because Feyre shot at a deer. So, but she wants to be like a wolf, so I like that. New affirmation, be a wolf. I'm a wolf. And not only that, but she can summon the water wolves, and it just makes me think like, you know, at the beginning Feyre was very meek-minded. Not meek-minded, but she was just very lost, very traumatized and everything, and through the help of the inner circle, the power of the inner circle, and social support, and being treated well, and you know, she was given choices. Like, you can stay here if you want, or you could leave. It's your choice. And not just like, I'm going to make this choice for you. I'm going to protect you because I don't think you can protect yourself. It's like, Tamlin? By the end of the book, I did not like Tamlin. By the end of the first book, I was like, okay, I like Tamlin a little bit. At this one. I don't know. But yeah, so. And then, like, by the end of it, she was kind of strong and cunning, and love that. Love that. And I did start reading in the beginning of the third book, and I'm just like loving her character even more. So she's definitely one of my favorite characters in the series, obviously. She was the first one I had cosplay. Followed by, was it the Serial? Yeah, Serial and then more. So I'm thinking about doing that now. I'm gonna read the book on Nesta because I was like, I should cosplay as Nesta for the fifth book. We'll see. And maybe Elaine. But I feel like Elaine's no different. I just have to look younger. Like, in my 30s, how can I look younger? Like, what? Yeah, it's crazy. Anyway, all this to say, let's see. Yeah, so I started disliking Tamlin. Not surprised there. I think you all heard it. I was trying to figure out why Rhysand was so nice, and then realized Feyre was his mate, and he cared enough about her because again he said that he loved her, that he couldn't stand to be away from her, and knew what she was going through with her trauma because he was also traumatized as well with everything that happened on the mountain. But so is he, but he was not ignoring her and they helped each other out. I think that was the key point. Tamlin was just like, suppress emotions, feelings. No, let's just do things this way. And Rhysand was like, hey, we can talk it out. Like, it's fine. You're throwing up at 2 a.m. I'll hold your hair back and we can talk about what's going on or something else. It's like, not as much as I love Azriel. Azriel is my favorite. Never bad boys. Feyre has a growth mindset, realizing her strengths, being her own master, when she was in Velaris in training. So yeah, if you know, I'm a therapist, and everything like that, and we talk about like growth mindset, you know, changing thoughts from like, you know, I can't do this to like I can't do this yet, or you know, I'm still learning, I'm still growing, stuff like that. So once she started like training her abilities and all that, like then she started growing more strong and more powerful and feeling like that confidence. And I love that. I love reading that. I love hearing that. I love seeing characters like that. So, yeah. And we'll just say with Tamlin, none of that was happening. He was just like, suppress. It's like, no, Tamlin. Not suppressing anything. Oh yeah, I put this in here, but I think I already mentioned Starfall is my favorite part of this whole series. Because, and not only that, but that was the first time like she laughed. Like she actually laughed. And she painted, and it was like, you know, like on Rhysand's hand and arm, and it was something for him, and it was like so meaningful and special. And I think that's when like the healing really started to happen, was in that moment. So I love Starfall. It's my favorite. I did mention this before, the armor part, when Cassian taps the siphon and the armor scales come out and stuff. I think that would be cool in a movie, series, whatever. I think Feyre fighting the ACOTAR would be cool in a movie. I really need this in my life. Give it to me. Mostly because I want to show my husband too. Be like, look at this series I am hyper fixated on. He'll be like, okay. Yeah, it's like, I'll make your favorite meal and then we'll watch it. That's how you get it. Through his stomach. Let's see. Wrap up with 2 more points. Rhysand and Feyre in the cave, like after he was taken and all that, kind of felt a little bit Hunger Gamesy, where like Katniss and Peeta were in the cave and she was like treating him and all that. It kind of felt like that, except they both, Katniss and Peeta, stuck together, and Feyre found out some information and was like taken back to the camp. It's like, Feyre, I think you're overacting a tad bit. I can understand like being like, whoa, like I need a moment to process, but you just demanding questions to a man that's like severely injured and poisoned and trying to heal from that. Slow down, girl, slow down. I get it, you're upset, but oh my gosh. Yeah, and then again, just, I know I didn't cover every single detail. There's just so much more in this book. Kind of like what I said in the first book. It's like there's so much in there. This is just like all these like major plot points, and then in between there's like little conversations here and there. So, but yeah, it definitely helped with getting a better sense of Prythian and the different lords, some of the different rules. I know some people complain about world building. I think this book kind of sets the stage. The only thing I don't like is like, oh, this is a rare trait. Only certain high fae can have this trait, and then it seems like everybody has it. It's like, now it'd be different if like, I don't know, say, it sounds like Lucien can winnow, but he's not like a high lord. It's like, he shouldn't have that power. Mor can help people winnow, but she's very strong and powerful. She's my second favorite. Feyre, Mor, Rhysand, no, we'll do Rhysand and then Azriel, and then all the other ones, but anyway, we'll do that in another episode, maybe. Like, will Springy let me do it? He probably would. Top 10 favorite characters in the Court of Thorns and Roses and why you should read it. Coming to demon interviews near you. Anyway. No, but, I forgot what I was saying. I got off on a tangent. Oh, yes, so, with, like, winnowing. So, Mor can do it, but she's pretty powerful. Lucien can do it, but he's not a High Lord. Feyre can do it, but she's now High Lady. Like, she should not have been able to do it until she became, like, High Lady. Like, stuff like that. It's just like, this is a rare trait. Only certain people can do it. It's like, but then it feels like almost anyone can do it. And I mean, sure, we're following the main characters and all that, so of course they're going to be the ones that do it. But I feel like with maybe certain characters, like maybe there's like certain limits. Like, you know, you can only do it for like 2 times a month. I don't know. I'm making stuff up. But like, you know, just like, or maybe you can only move like a certain amount of distance. That might be one. Or maybe you can only carry like a certain amount of people, because I think he had like 4 guards with them. Maybe you can only do 2, and Tamla could do like 4 or 5 people. I don't know, something like that. Like, I feel like if you're gonna make it rare, either set limitations or only make it for specific people. That's my only gripe with stuff like that. It's like, oh, this is rare. No, it's not. Everybody seems to have it. So, but I feel like as far as like world building goes, we explored a little bit more of the courts and its rules and boundaries and people in the courts, and the Illyrian camps. Everybody hates them. Everybody hates to see Rizan come in. We learned a bit about the Court of Nightmares. Maybe it's just like later books. Maybe then it's... I mean, these are some pretty lengthy books, so if stuff gets missed or stuff gets confused, I get that. So that's why whenever I try to do series, I like go back and I reread the first part or 2. And I'll take notes on like what was important or what was foreshadowed beforehand, so then I can tie it in with the next part. So it's just a writing thing. That's what I've been doing. So check out my Wattpad, archive of my own different stuff. So alright, and with that was A Court of Mist and Fury, the second book of A Court of Thorns and Roses. As I said before, I started reading A Court of War and Ruin and then realized maybe you should wait until you do this video and do the next one. So yes, when will I get that read? I don't know. Is this one more? No. Oh, the last book's the longest. Really? That was 400 pages? I guess it did take me quick, October to January. Of course I was taking classes and work and stuff, but... Okay, so this next book's gonna be the chunky one. Yay! So safe. Yeah, so whenever I get that done, of course I get the video out. It'll probably get posted later on this year, and then we'll have 2 more books. Maybe by then we'll have news on the 6th book. That'd be so exciting, because I do enjoy the series. I love reading it. I love seeing artwork and pictures. I love cosplaying. So thank you, Sarah J. Maas, for creating the universe. It's one of my little escapisms. I just get my little old adult juice and a book, my dehumidifier, my candle, my blankie, my cat, and I just slip away into the world of Velaris, where a girl can dream. Yeah, it's a lot of fun. It's a good series. So, alright, so with that, if you have any thoughts or questions, different things, make sure you leave a nice kind comment down below. So I just want to say thank you so much for watching, taking the time to watch. I hope everyone's taking care, staying safe, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace, love, and kindness. Bye everyone!